Are you able to get through?
Good evening, friends and family.
Okay, try to get back in.
This is Denise Hetherington with Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities. Now, we have had some technical difficulties here. Anthony Travis is here, and we're trying to get all of our guests online here. As you know, we're a nonprofit organization here at Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities, and we are working very hard to support the awareness of our Black businesses in our communities, because our Black businesses in our communities have the ability to circulate dollars. And tonight, we have a very important guest, Anthony Travis, better known as the Tax Doctor, is here with us tonight. And we're going to be talking about property taxes and the impact of property taxes, not only on individual property owners, but also on our businesses. And Mr. Travis, I want to thank you for coming tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And every Wednesday night, we're here with a business, typically on our show, but this is something that is impacting all of us. And we depend on our businesses and our communities to help us circulate dollars.
Yes.
And this tax issue that we have here in Chicago, Illinois, the state of Illinois, is a huge problem. And you have some information to impart with us about our taxes and some strategies here. There's some bills on the table. We want to inform our people about what's on the table and give some perspective and some knowledge tonight. So because a lot of bills are being passed, a lot of laws are being passed, and we're not informed. You know, our state representatives are not telling us about what's going on. And so that's why we're having this show tonight, to inform people. We're not saying one way or the other. We have some very positive support for this strategy that Mr. Travis is going to talk to us about. And then there are some people that have some concerns, and he's going to address all of that tonight. We want you to go to rrgbc.org and subscribe to our website. When you do that, then you also become eligible for our book giveaway. We give a book away because we're great supporters of our bookstores here in Chicago. Our bookstore of the month is The Book Joint, which is located at 69th and Stony Island. And the book that we're giving away this month is Back of the Hiring Line by Roy Beck. And this is a 200-year history of immigration surges, employer bias, and depression of Black wealth here in the United States of America. So if you want to be eligible to win a copy of this book, all you have to do is subscribe to rrgbc.org. And if you win the book, we pay for it and we ship it to you free of charge. And we also ask that you support the Southside Community Federal Credit Union. They are a financial institution here in this city that has been working with the people in our community, especially here on the South Side, providing all types of loans and financial literacy classes and just financial support in general. So in order for an institution like this to thrive, they need us to open up accounts. So we ask that you go to the Southside Community Federal Credit Union and please open up an account. So let's get started. Mr. Travis,
Yes.
I would like for you to introduce yourself to our audience, and I would like for you to talk to us about your perspective about our tax issue here in the state of Illinois, and what you are proposing that we should do about it.
First of all, my name is Anthony Travis, A.K.A. the Tax Doctor. I had the opportunity, along with my good buddy Obi Werloff, to serve on the governor task force property tax relief under the leadership of Representative Mary Flowers. So our subcommittee put together a 62-page report talking about the problem facing our state, and that is one of too many units of government, too many school districts, and all of that cost us $33.8 billion in property taxes. We have 856 school districts, and that costs us $20.8 billion in property taxes. We have more units of government than any other state in the United States of America. And we say to the taxpayers, you want to know why your tax bill is outrageous? That's because we have too many school districts. And under the law, each school district must have a superintendent and an assistant superintendent, a principal. And in some communities, you may have 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 school districts in your community. That's a lot of taxes going out your back door. And because of the fact that we are the laughing stock of the country, because back in 1970, 69, 70, when we had a constitutional convention, out of that convention came a little thing called home rule. And you need about 25,000 population to automatically get home rule. If not, you got to have a referendum on the ballot to allow you to get home. Home rule allows you to raise taxes on your cohorts. Okay. So we're in a situation where these school districts then got out of hand, your taxes then got out of hand, and people are migrating out of our state into states where taxes are very low. And as the reps up in New Jersey said, if you want to make New Jersey affordable, consolidate your school districts. And they was telling the truth. Because in understanding the state of Florida, they have 2,838,000 students, and they only have 70 school districts, folks. 70. We have 1,900,000 students, and we got 856 school districts. That's right, folks. We have 12 million people, and we got 102 counties. Florida has 20 million people, and they only got 69 counties. So you ask yourself, what the hell is wrong with us here in Illinois? Well, Illinois has a lot of corruption. Illinois has bad leadership. And if you know, like I know, Mike Madigan ran this state for 50 years and he ran it into the ground. And some of them same public officials that was around when he was in charge are still in Springfield. And Mike Madigan did not want property tax reform. And now there's about 7, 8 different bills floating around in Springfield. And I like to say, fire, fire. Your house is on fire. The state is on fire. And none of the bills that they're supporting will put out the fire. But we have 2 bills that we need passed in Springfield.
Well, Mr. Travis.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I, before you talk about your bills, can you tell us about some of the bills that are on the table now?
Yeah. Yes. There's one bill on the table. If it got passed, if you lived in your property for 37 years, you would not have to pay property taxes. There's another bill that is looking at the exemptions, the tax levies, and why Cook County taxes and levies are so much different than the other counties. Then there's another bill, and that's the bill that Thaddeus Jones is pushing, where he would like to do away with property taxes altogether and use the income tax system. And you're talking about 2030. That's when his bill would kick in. Okay. Then you got two bills out there to do away with township government, the small ones, and mix and add some to the other townships, co-mingling townships. Our position is township government is 175 years old. They have outlived their usefulness to taxpayers. Chicago had townships, but Chicago got rid of their townships. And they even call Hyde Park a township. Okay. But those who live in the suburbs, you pay taxes to those townships. And people making 100,000, supervisors may be making, like in Thornton Township, that person making 200-some thousand. Then people own roads and bridges, might be making 100,000. I mean, it is just unreal the
So
amount of
what
weight.
I'm hearing
Yes,
you
ma'am.
say is we have all of these small, we have these townships, and we have all these small structures within our government system here,
Ma'am.
and they require administration. They
Yes.
require, people, employees working, and you're saying that this is just a lot of unnecessary um, funding.
Yes, ma'am. That is so true. I mean, I couldn't have put it no simpler than how you laid it out. Because you
Mhm.
have to understand, township government was created in 1850, folks. 1850. And here we are, 2025, 175 years later.
So back then, it was a benefit.
Yes, it was in 1850.
You
Because that's
say in
all
what
we had.
way?
It's all we
Pardon
had.
me? Okay.
But today, we have county government and we have local government. And when you begin to advance and you modernize and you change your form of government, you put yourself in a situation where you don't no longer need township government because everything that a township can do, your county can do for you. Some things your local government can do for you. Okay. And because we are so messed up, we have a $146 billion pension unfunded liability. And property taxes help pay for some of those benefits. And under the Constitution, Article 13, Section 5, you cannot diminish or impair these workers' benefits unless you have a constitutional amendment to give the legislators the power to overhaul the system. And the system do need to be overhauled, folks. Now,
Mhm.
you was telling me that you had a dialogue with some folks in the school district where you was working there. One of the things we found out is that folks who live in property tax rich communities, they love this system. They crave this system. But people like us who do not live in property tax rich communities, we can't stand this system because it is not fair to ourselves and our children.
Can you
Because,
explain that?
yeah, let me explain it this way. If you live in a property tax rich community, you can send your children to what we call the Rolls Royce of education, because that's just how much money they have to spend on their children education. And in most cases, it's like a country club environment. And when you flip the script, and our children who live in poor property tax communities, and by the zip code, they cannot get a Rolls Royce education. They get a Pinto, or what's that other small car that they don't even make no more?
Volkswagen.
Not the Volkswagen.
Oh,
Had it on the tip of my tongue.
no, I'm not sure which one you're
Hugo.
talking
There you go. The
about.
Hugo. Can you imagine your child getting a Hugo education? A Pinto education?
So why does this happen?
How can your child compete with a Rolls Royce type of education?
So why does this happen? How does this
This
happen?
this happened because at the Constitutional Convention, the Committee on Education had a debate, and they was discussing how to fund our schools. Dunn Clark Nitch, Senator Dunn Clark Nitch, she had a bill at the convention whereby if it got passed, the state would have funded education at a 90% percentile, while taxpayers only had to pay 10%. What happened? One of the white delegates stood up at the convention and he said to the majority, I don't agree. I don't agree with the majority. What about the exceptional children? And as I read the text, I'm trying to figure out who was the exceptional children. Come to find out, he was talking about white children.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened, the other delegates at the convention didn't give that delegate no pushback. Not none. And because they did not give him any pushback, they left the convention kicking the can down the road. And here we are, folks, 55 years later, talking about this financial crisis on how we fund education. And because we did not get what should have happened in 1970, we're stuck in a quagmire where our children live to end up going in jail in most cases because we don't have the financial wherewithal to compete with the property rich communities. And now we're at a situation where it done got so out of whack, people are leaving our state. They can't afford the taxes. Businesses are leaving our state because they can't afford the taxes. And my question to all of us, what is it going to take? What is it going to take for us to wake up and realize that this system is inherently racist in nature? Folks, California had the same crisis. And the folks out there said they had enough. And what did they do? They voted for Proposition 13, and they told Sacramento, we want the general fund to fund education. We want to take the assessors out of the equation. And that's what they did in 1978. Hawaii, California, Michigan, Indiana, they fund their schools by way of the general fund, folks. Now, the question was raised, what about the lottery? Well, folks, the lottery was sold to us on the premise that it would go to help the schools. But somehow, the folks in Springfield decided to take the lottery money and put it in the general fund. And because they made that move, they can use the money any way they want to, folks.
So
Now,
now,
keep it. Go ahead.
okay, now, Mr. Travis. So when I had this dialogue with some other people, this was one of their major concerns: is that if we take the property funding of the schools off of the property taxes and put it into the general fund, that money won't go where it's supposed to go
Well,
because of what happened with the
that's
lottery.
not true because when you built that into the law, the educational fund would have its own spot in the budget, and you cannot touch that money because it's only for education and it's for the construction and remodeling of our schools, capital improvement projects. Okay,
Mhm.
having the state fund education on a statewide basis means you're going to have equality, you're going to have equity. Okay, you can't have equity and equality now because there's a disparity between the haves and the have-nots. There was a primary situation in, I think it was Georgia. One school district, rich, they floated bonds and say, as a primary example, they only paid 1% for the bonds. But in the black part of town, the roof was leaking, the bathroom was messed up, and if they floated bonds, you're talking about a 15 to 30% interest rate. That's the disparity between the haves and the have-nots.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's why you got the chaos in these school districts. And so, as adults, it is our responsibility, even if you don't have children in the school system anymore. As adults, it is our responsibility to fund education in a correct manner. Property taxes is not the right manner. And I see my good friend Gary Dingle, one of our cohorts in our coalition, is trying to get in because he put together a fantastic AI analysis on how we could fund education without using property taxes. Folks, you need to listen. You need to listen to what this fantastic brother has to say
Now
because
I'm not
he is,
seeing him on the screen, so
he
he
is
hasn't come in yet.
indeed the CEO, or as they say, the chairman of the far south side, south suburban side of the NAACP.
Hmm.
And he comes from Florida. He lived in Maryland. He lived in upstate New York. And he brings that wealth of experience to the table. And so when we begin to do the analogy of Florida, Maryland, and New York, he brings that expertise to the table. And he qualified everything I've been preaching. And so, folks, we say to our elected officials, and this is where you come in at. You need to call your state rep, your state senator, the governor, the alderman, and tell them you want the schools off the property tax system. You want the schools consolidated. And when we talk about consolidation, folks, if you live in Cook County, like we do, you have 140 school districts. Let me say that again. You have 140 school districts just in Cook County. Now you tell me what sense do that make? Same thing with the fact we got 102 counties. 97 of the 102 lost population, folks. That's right. They lost population.
And I think you were talking earlier about the salaries uh, that's attached to many of these administrators
Yes.
in these different districts. I'd like for you to speak to that, because your property taxes are supposed to increase because the value of your property is increasing. And
And that's
that's not
part of the law.
happening in Illinois like it should be. People's property values are not going up like they should, but the taxes are.
Yes. And they raised the taxes because of the fact that the superintendents created a thing called a tax levy. And the tax levy is how you break up how much each homeowner have to pay, because the superintendent may say they need $10 million. And so the tax levy has to be broken up in such a manner that each household pay a certain amount till they get that 10 million. But we say if you took the county assessor out the equation and you built it into the law, you're talking about paying anywhere from 1% to 2% of the first face value of your property or the market value of your property. And it can't go up no more than 1 to 2%. Okay, that's what California did with Prop 13.
Now we have the second, is it the second highest property tax rate?
It runs neck and neck with New Jersey.
Okay.
We're 1 and 2. 1 and 2.
Okay. So one of the other concerns was if you decrease the number of school districts, are job losses.
Well, let me say this. This might sound harsh, but the same people that talk about the job losses, these are the same people who don't give a damn if your taxes goes up and you can't afford to pay your mortgage. I said it, folks. They don't give a damn about you. They want their 6 figures. And if you can't pay the 6 figures, you're gonna lose your house. And is that fair to you? Is that fair to grandma? Is that fair to grandpa? No, it's not fair. And what if young people want to buy a home? In this state, they can't buy a home.
And it's affecting our businesses
Yes,
as
it is.
well, because if they own, and many of our Black owned businesses do not own the properties that they're in, but then there are some who do. And then even if you don't, if the property taxes are going up, the rent is going up.
That's right.
So
And
the businesses are impacted by it both ways.
let's make something crystal clear, folks. If you're a renter, you pay taxes. Let me say that again. If you are a renter, you pay taxes through your rent. I remember living in an apartment building in Maywood. My landlord was paying $20,000 in property taxes. That's right, 20,000. You think he's gonna eat that? I wouldn't eat it, and you wouldn't eat it. So who's gonna eat it? The folks who live in his apartments. That's right, folks. And one of the reasons you want to have businesses in your community is
Mm-hmm.
because they offset what you have to pay.
Right.
And the more businesses that evaporate or move out of our state,
Mhm.
That means you and I got to pick up that lost revenue.
And what I'm seeing here in Chicago, like here in South Shore, I see businesses leaving South Shore and not necessarily leaving Chicago, but going to other communities. They'll go over into Hyde Park, or they'll open their businesses up on the north side where there's a greater concentration of businesses already.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not helping the people in the South Shore area.
No, it's
And
not.
then those businesses that are still here, they're struggling and they're not getting the resources and support that they need.
And that's so true. That's why Clifford Graham was a member of our task force. And while we was meeting in Representative Mary Flowers' office, Clifford Graham came up with an awesome idea. He said, why not have sales tax revenue sharing? I thought it was an awesome idea. And what do that mean? That means if I go to Hyde Park and spend my money and pay taxes over there, it should be done by zip code. You put my zip code in that cash register, then some of that sales tax revenue should come back to my zip code.
Hmm.
That's what you call sales tax revenue sharing, folks. We need to do that.
Because they
Because,
actually combined Hyde Park, the fourth ward and the fifth ward. They actually combined them
yeah,
together. So we have one alderman,
yeah,
and we share the same alderman, but what's happening over in Hyde Park is not the same as what's happening in South
absolutely.
Shore.
But if you do go to South Hyde Park and you live in South Shore and you spend your dollars over there, some of that revenue from sales taxes should come back to South Shore.
And that's called what again?
Sales tax revenue sharing.
So that's something to address with the alderman.
Absolutely. And that is a statewide issue because one thing we have to understand, a lot of businesses are not going to come back to our community because they ask the question, why should I put my business in your community when I know you're going to jump on a bus or in a car and drive
Hmm.
to Tinley Park, Orland Park, Naperville, Bolingbrook? You get the picture?
Yep. Hyde Park, North Side.
Yes, that's
you
true.
know, I went to a business. We were working to um, support our Black bookstores. And
Yes,
I spoke with a business owner who lived in the Chatham area, who grew up in the Chatham area, and about the bookstore that was in the community, that had been in the community for over 20 years. And this individual was telling me about a bookstore up on the north side.
yeah,
Wasn't even aware of this bookstore that's in their own community. There's this disconnect, you know and our businesses are struggling as a result of that. And we know how important having a business is to a community. They provide jobs, they create jobs, they provide opportunities for entrepreneurs. They're more like, especially if they're Black owned businesses, they're
mhm,
more likely to support causes in
yes.
that particular community. And so they helping to circulate that dollar. And we have so many people with businesses in our communities that are just taking the dollars out. They're making money in our communities and they're taking their money to their communities.
Well, let me say this. Malcolm X said it, and he was profound when he said it. We're the only somebody. Let anybody come into our neighborhoods and open up shop. And we run to give them our capital. Let me say that again. We run. We don't crawl. We run to give them our money. And these same individuals don't put nothing back in our community. And Malcolm said, you can't blame them. You got to blame yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't spend your money with your people. In 1921, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, because we were in a situation where we lived amongst each other. We
Right.
had no choice but to spend our money with each other. But then something happened one day, and it was called integration, economic integration. But see, economic integration is one-sided because you can go spend your money in everybody else's community but your own, and 99.1% of everybody else don't come into your neighborhood and
Right.
spend money with you. Cooperative economics, group economics is something we have to look at. It is something we need to practice. I looked up one day and I saw a red flag. And that red flag said, tax doctor, how come you? How come you don't spend money in your neighborhood? How come you don't open up a business? How come? How come? And we get to such a point where we're watching the demise of our own communities. That's right, folks. When you talk about regentrification, only time regentrification should take place is when the Black community come together, pool their resources, and they regentrify their own community. That's how that should work. And now you got New York coming into South Shore, buying up houses over there, driving up the rent, driving up taxes. Folks, this situation with property taxes is so scandalous, so severe, that we're going to look up. And if you know anything about the Titanic, Denise, the last time I checked, didn't the Titanic sink?
Yes, it did. And everybody was still partying on the boat
Yes.
before they realized, you know, and only
Doom,
certain people
doomsday
were able to
was
get off of the boat.
yes.
But this is why our people need to be educated
Yes.
about how our government works. I
Well,
think
right
that's
now our
where a
government is
lot of
not working for us.
I think that's where a lot of the dissension is,
Yes.
about it, because people really don't understand what's going on, and we trust our leadership and our legislators to tell us what to do, and we don't really understand what's going on. As you're talking about this whole property tax system, a lot of people don't really understand what's going on. That's why I asked you to come
Well,
on here tonight.
yes. And let me say this to our community. And this should make you mad as hell, folks. Like the movie Network, Mr. Bill. I'm mad as hell and I'm not gonna take it no more. Folks, If your legislator tell you that they have a super majority in both houses, I know you can't hit them upside the head, but if they tell you we got a super majority, you should tell them, if you can't solve our problems with a super majority of votes, you don't need to run again. Did you hear what I said, Denise?
Mm-hmm.
That means they got enough votes to fix what's wrong.
That's right.
That's what a super majority means, folks. They got the votes. And if they cannot use the votes to solve our problem, then what good are they to us? What good are they to our community? Is it possible for Gary to get in?
I have an opening here, and I don't see him. If he has the, does he have the link?
Yes, because he's been talking, typing up into the chat, and I can read all his stuff.
And I'm not seeing him. He's not here. Let me see. Let me go down a little bit. Ah, here we go. There we
Yeah,
go.
I am.
There he is.
I
All
am
right,
here.
here we go.
I've been here the
Absolutely.
whole time. Yeah, I've been here the whole
Okay. All right. Thank you, Gary. All right.
time. I'm happy finally you can at least hear my voice, and I knew I wasn't there because I was grayed out up there in the picture up in the corner. I knew something was wrong. But anyway,
Okay.
I've been working with Anthony Travis, a tax doctor, for a number of years now. In fact, I met him about 10 years ago when he first told me about this stuff, and I was so impressed with what he said that I never forgot it. And we got back together again recently. It's been about almost a year now, Anthony, hasn't it? Over a
Yes,
year. We
yes.
got back, and I saw what he was doing, and like he was telling you, I am from. I grew up I was born in Miami. I grew up in Miami and Maryland, and then I went. I graduated from high school, went to college in Florida, and then I went to Maryland and lived there. And I lived in like three different houses. So I know about taxes, property taxes. And the thing is, and before I came here, I lived in upstate New York for about 5 years. So I know about taxes there too. The taxes there are high, but not as high as they are here. So the one thing I learned from living in those locations was that Illinois is an aberration. Then the units of governments we have here, the high property taxes, townships. I never heard of a township until I got here. I didn't know what a township was. I looked at the taxes. Me and my wife, I said, what's a township? And she said, I don't know. My wife said she was an attorney. She's a retired attorney. I'm retired also, but she's an attorney. And so she looked at it, and we figured out that these were townships that wasn't doing anything. We couldn't figure out what they were doing.
Excuse me,
And it,
Gary. I
yeah,
hate to interrupt you.
yes.
They taking your money.
Oh, okay. That's what they're doing. They're taking that part. You know what? That's the part we kind of figured out. They was
Right.
taking our money. And the thing is, for me, and as I tell people, I worked as a scientist. I worked for NOAA for 24 years, and then for the last 16 years as a federal employee, I did IT stuff because I wanted to do something. I did something different. And the thing is, I'm looking at the data, I'm looking at the information, and my analytical mind was saying, this doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make sense. And a lot of people don't know it, don't realize that. They think this is normal to pay somebody to lower your taxes. To me, that sounds crazy. Because if they can lower your taxes, the state should do it. And if the people you hire are doing something illegal, then how are they getting away with it? It doesn't even make sense. And then there are people who pay or they don't, or they try to pay, but they can't do anything for them. And I've met several people, and it just really hurts my heart when I talk to somebody who's about to lose their home. And I'm sitting there thinking, you're losing your home because the state is taking your home away from you because you can't pay your property taxes. The state. That doesn't even sound right. You know, you've been in your house for, I met a guy who's been in the house for 25 years, had his own business. He retired. He was 67, 68 years old. And he said all of a sudden he couldn't pay his mortgage and the taxes anymore because the tax went up on his house. And he didn't know what he was going to do. And these are the kind of things that it shouldn't be happening. It doesn't happen in any other state that I know of. It didn't happen in Maryland. I had a house in I bought for my ex-wife in Maryland. The house worth $485,000 now. The taxes on that house are like 21 to 2,200. I paid 9,000 a year on the house I live in at Homewood. It ain't worth nowhere near $45,000.
And
So
that's the other problem, is that our property values, typically I said earlier,
yeah,
as your property value goes up, your taxes go up. But the
well,
property values are not going up like they should here.
no,
Right.
and here's the other thing people forget, and Anthony kind of explained to me why they go up. But when your taxes go up, your marketing value goes down. Because who's going to
Mm,
buy a house with a high property tax,
right.
especially new couples, you know? And so the thing
Right.
is, but they still assess your house at the rate they need to get the money from you. See what I mean? The rate goes up or the assessment goes up. They're gonna get the money. Am I right about that, tax doctor?
Yes,
Because
sir.
the tax burden does not change
Right. Gary,
because we got
talk
all
a
these units of government.
can you talk a little bit about the AI approach and
Yeah,
analysis that you did?
yeah. What I've been
Okay,
doing is
let me say this
yeah,
right quick for some people
sure,
that Gary has just come in. And
yeah.
Gary, you're the president of the Far South Side
No, no, no,
NAACP.
no, no, no. That's
Let
the
me let
real
me let me
side
get
part.
this straight.
Yeah, I'm the president of the Chicago Far South Suburban Branch,
Our
and
suburban
we're
branch.
located in the suburbs, and the South Side is actually in the city.
Okay.
So, so we're in the Far South Suburban Branch, and when we have a PO box in Homewood, and we kind of we cover about 37 cities, towns. Or we try to cover 37 towns. It's almost
Okay.
impossible. We do the best we can. So, and the thing is, this is one of these problems that when you explain it to people, I would hope that they would look at they'll consider what we're saying and understand that it's extremely unusual. It really is. It's unusual. Illinois it's a great state, but they got a huge problem because it's
Yeah.
spiraling down. Because what's happening is the burden is increasing, but the amount of people are leaving. I mean, the number of people is decreasing, and the home ownership is going down because people can't afford homes. So, but the burden never goes down.
Well, we've
So,
lost, I think, a third of our population already.
well, we lost 200,000, I think, over. I don't know if
Hmm.
it's like maybe. So it's 12 million now. I don't know what it was. Maybe 15, 20 years. I moved here in 1999, actually, from upstate New York. So I've been here for a while. My kids went to school here, and yeah, one of the things it's just like you were saying with the schools. How can you have a lot of inequality in schools? That's another thing. I don't get that because one thing they did in Maryland, all the schools they got the same amount of money. Now, what they did with the money, if they had for each student, you, based on the number of students you have, you got the money. Now, if you had a lot of students, you got more money. If you had less students, you got less money. But the thing is what they did with the money. Sometimes they mismanaged it and everything. They did something wrong, and that's where the discrepancy in the schools came from, not from the actual amount of money you had to work with. That they do. This state is really crazy, So
And I think that is one of the concerns that people have is
right.
when the money is on the table, what's going to happen with it,
Well, I think tax right. Here's what's happening now. A little bit of money might come from the state for the schools, right? They talk about the casinos, they talk about the lottery and all this, but in reality, they know the money's going to come from the property taxes. Ultimately, we're going to pay for
Hmm.
the worst setup for funding schools in the nation. I mean, and a lot, we're not going to say to do this, but it is a bad system. And the thing is, when property taxes start taking people out of their homes, not good. If you ask, here's the thing you should do. Now, I've been using AI to find ways to fund the schools. And if I asked for 5 ways the first time, it came back with the same ways that Anthony had brought up. Then I asked for 10 ways, it came up with 10 different ways. Then the last approach, I asked for 15 different ways to fund the schools other than property taxes. So, and other states are doing that. We don't have to do what we're doing. We have to change because what's going to happen is there's no way to get out of this hole we're going down otherwise. Because, I mean, if we left here now and went back to Maryland, we could buy a house for $485,000 and then pay $2,000 for property taxes. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but we don't want to move, obviously, because I've been here long. I've been here a while, and I'm too old to move, I think, right now, anyway. So, but the thing is this, there's a solution on the table, and we have all they have to do is make the changes that's necessary, and it's going to be difficult because, as you know, there are people vested in the system the way it is right now, and they like it because think about the superintendent in Dalton here. He's making 450, but near $500,000 a year in
Mm.
Dalton, where the average salary is about 20 to 30,000 a year, and he's making that doesn't make any kind of sense at all, you know. So, and that's my take on it. And I've been I'm doing everything I can, and I have to keep doing my NAACP stuff as president. And we have every time I have an event, I bring this up, let them know, and I've seen a lot of people are interested in it, and a lot of people they understand what's going on, which is really good because if they if they understand the issue and the problem, what I've noticed is that they understand it and they say, well, it can't be fixed, and or they understand it and they say we have to fix it, but they don't know how to fix it. And there are people who know exactly what the problem is. They don't want to fix it because they feel like they're going to stay in the system and they're okay because they're going to pay their property taxes because they got enough money to pay it. I had two people actually brag about paying over $25,000 in property taxes
Oh my
because they
goodness.
can pay it without any problems.
Now,
So,
how does this affect the pension fund crisis
well,
that we
the,
have?
well, the pension fund, it needs to be funded, but obviously we got too many people retiring at very high rates, and then they have people collecting from more than one pension. That's another unusual thing, because every state I've lived in, they have one government pension system.
Mm-hmm.
Illinois has multiple. I think they combine the fires from
Yeah,
fire and
they
police.
combine they combine the 653 police and fire pension
Right, they did.
money
Yeah,
to down to two.
right.
And the Supreme Court ruled in the favor of the governor for doing that. Unlike Article 13, Section 5 under Amendment 1, when Pat Quinn was our governor, they was pushing for pension reform. And at that time, I didn't know what I know today. That
Mm-hmm.
James Stewart, who works for the CTU union, he was fighting to overhaul the government uh, choice of overhauling the system because it violated Article 13, Section 5. And so they sued the state, took the state to court, and the Supreme Court ruled that unless you have a constitutional amendment where you put it on the ballot and the people voted up or down, and if they voted up, that means you got the opportunity to fix what's wrong. But
Mm-hmm.
you cannot diminish or impair their benefits.
That's true.
And then they just voted 2 years ago for Amendment 1.
Amendment one.
Once again, Amendment 1 just codified everything they got into the Constitution. So the public workers, that's who we're talking about. The public work, not the private sector. The public sector did themselves an injustice because if they got a crisis, can nothing be done about it because it's into the Constitution. And you got to have a constitutional amendment to fix the 146 billion unfunded liability when it comes to the pensions. I put in the chat, folks. We're having our third property tax meeting at the library in the Argyle Garden Friday the 28th from 2 to 4 p.m. And we'd like for you to come out, support our movement, folks. Bring your tax bill with you. And we have to we have to we have to make the legislature fix what's wrong. Because if you got the schools off the property tax system, folks, you would see a 61.5% property tax cut and maybe up to 72% property tax cut. Because the state will be responsible for funding education like they should.
And what are the two bills that are on the table?
The two bills that we have on the table, one is consolidate the school districts. Two, it get the schools off the property tax system. Now, these bills have to be shell. That means they have to be hooked up with a bill that's already out there. And then they got to be passed, folks. If you want to fix what's wrong, you call your state rep, you call your state senator, and ask them to get behind these two bills.
And I think they should also, our state reps, our aldermen should be having forums with the
Absolutely.
people in the community to talk about what your proposals are, to talk about what their positions are on it, pros and cons. They should be having discussions with the community about it. Because a lot of people, if you weren't on here talking about it, I think a lot of people wouldn't even know that this is even going on.
Well, let me say this to you, Denise, because I thank God that you had the right heart, the right ear to hear. You heard me on WVON twice.
Right.
Robert Kelly show and Dorothy Tillman show. And you and your daughter came out and met us at Argyle Garden, and you decided to work with us and have me on your show because we have a state to save. We have communities to save. And one of the things I wrote as I sent these things to Springfield, to your legislator, you got to ask him, what type of legacy are you going to leave once your time is up in Springfield? Are you going to leave a piss poor legacy? Or are you going to have a legacy of change? And that's what we have to push for, change. Folks, we are the catalyst. We are the ones as adults who have to stand up and tell these folks in Springfield, you work for us. And as I like to point out, folks, they're quick to tell you they have a supermajority in Springfield in both houses. My thing is this: a supermajority don't mean a damn thing if you can't solve our problems.
And we say, and we have had many conversations where many people are saying, even just having a Black person in
Yes.
office. We have voted so many times to put Black people in office, and
Yeah.
do they represent our interests?
As
So
Aaron Hicks would say, Denise, all you got to do is look outside your window, look outside your front door, and if you don't see change in the air, then you know they don't represent your interests.
Right. Can I say something?
sure, Gary.
I want to say something. What I've been doing is giving speeches to people about the importance of voting. Now, going to
Mhm.
candidates forums and different meetings and stuff. And one of the things I've noticed is that every politician, not every, but most of them have this range, and I call it the sacrificial range. What they're willing to do is sacrifice a certain number of people for what they think is good for the community, what they think is good for the community. And the thing is, nobody should be sacrificed. And what they're doing now is they're sacrificing people right now who can't pay their taxes, or their property taxes rather. They're sacrificing people in the south suburbs who are having problems paying their property taxes. We had a
Mm-hmm.
politician told us, he said something about 12%. 12% can't pay. So what he's saying is that we just have to sacrifice 12%. I had one person tell me that some people are going to lose their homes. It's going to happen. Well, I don't want to sacrifice people's homes, you know.
Mhm.
And what I've been telling people is this, and it sounds simple, but I tell them you have to vote for people who care about people. Now,
Yes.
people if they come in talking about programs, or we're going to bring businesses in, they're not talking about people. They're talking about money coming in, and not necessarily about people. And the money may not help the people, but they're going to bring businesses in. Like they tried to industrialize the Calumet Country Club. And
Mhm.
I fought against that, because they said they're going to bring it. Somebody would have made money, but not the community. The issue is that you have to vote for people who really care about people. And you don't see a lot of that in politicians. So you got to, I'm asking I wouldn't ask them, do you care about people? And tell me how you care about people, and what are you going to do? And so, if they can't tell you what they're going to do to help the community, that's because they're not really in it for the community. They should be able to tell you right up front. And so, I'm challenging everybody that I know that's running for office. I'm asking, what do you care about? Do you care about people? Do you
Well,
care
I
about?
know when Rahm Emanuel was in office and he created the new city, it was mostly for the immigrants that were coming into the country.
Mm,
They were getting supports for housing, education, setting up businesses. And I remember one of the areas was understanding our political system and how it works,
mm,
and our people need to be informed. That is one of the reasons we here at Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Communities invited you on here to give information to our people. We support our businesses, and we know how important our businesses are here in Chicago. And I know this tax issue is affecting our businesses. And so this was an information uh, forum here, and we need to have more education. I think if our people understood the process of what was going on and what is going on better, and were made aware when these bills are being put on the table, and what they mean to us, you know I think maybe people would be more informed voters, for those
mm.
people who are getting out here voting, as opposed to somebody just telling them who to vote for.
Well,
Because we do
Yep,
see what's, like you said, look outside your community. You do see what's going on.
that's right.
well, the thing is this, Denise. We have to hold these legislators' feet to the fire. And if they, again, as taxpayers, you should be on your phone calling your state rep, your state senator, and the governor's office, raising holy hell with these people that we won't change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You want change. You have a strategy. Uh, if they have another strategy, they should be talking about it.
Yes.
you know. And so I'm very appreciative of you doing what you're doing, and definitely appreciative of you, the both of you, willing to come on our show and talk to our people. And if any more information is to be imparted, you're welcome to come back. But our people need to be informed. Our people need to be informed voters.
Right.
We have people out here that don't vote, and we
Mm-hmm.
have people out here that do vote. People that are voting, they need to be informed.
Right.
Let me say this, Denise, as a disclosure. I am a veteran. I am 100% disabled. I pay no taxes.
That's right.
I pay no taxes, folks. But I'm feeling your pain. I am feeling your pain because nobody should lose their house or their business over taxes.
Mhm.
We have to put an end to this madness. And we're counting on all of you in South Shore and around the state to work with the Citizen Advisory Coalition to Save Illinois / We the People campaign, folks. It's up to us to save this state. It's up to us to save our community. It's up to us to fund education because we owe that to our children.
Absolutely.
But it's how we pay for education is the problem. And property taxes is not the best way to go.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Denise, for having us on your show. And
I
we'll
appreciate
be
you
Absolutely.
having me.
anytime you want us to come out.
Yes.
Okay. And you want to tell about your meeting again that
Yes,
you have coming up?
yes, we got coming up on Friday, this Friday, the 28th, from 2 to 4 at Ideal Garden Library, folks. You need to come out 10 deep, 100 deep, because we need 50. Let me put it to you this way, folks. We need an army between 50 to 100 people making phone calls to these legislators and to the governor and the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. We want to save our state, and if you don't want to do it, then we're going to replace you. In the story.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for the time that you're putting in. I'm thinking about when they changed the tax laws to address seniors. I remember at one point seniors were losing their homes because of the increase in taxes. People had paid for their homes, and the
Yes,
taxes were going up. And
yes.
they put some, these exemptions and tax freezes, on the table. And
And
I don't know, even in this environment, to what extent, a lot of seniors are being impacted by this.
yes,
So it's definitely, we need to be informed people. We here at Repair, Restore, and Grow Black Community, we're a nonprofit organization. We do not support any political position, but we are about information. And that's what the purpose of this gathering was today. And I want to thank you, Gary Dingle, and I want to
Thank you.
thank you, Anthony Travis, the tax doctor, for coming on and doing the work that you're doing. And looking forward to hearing how soon is this vote going to take place? Do you know?
well, we've got up until May because a
Mhm.
bill have to be read 3 times. And so uh, hopefully we get leadership to take these 2 bills and shell these bills and get these bills passed. So it's going to be in leadership hands, but we got to bring the fire on them to do what's right by our communities.
Okay. Well, I
All
want to
right.
thank you again for
Thank
coming.
you.
And friends and family, as we always say, support Black businesses in our community.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming tonight.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.